What's good, everyone? Real quick, I'm very sick right now, so if my voice sounds a little bit weird, you know why. We've covered a lot of really bad people on this channel, but this guy really takes the cake. You know, I feel like I say that any other video, but this time, we might have a new biggest piece of shit. Now, I will say, I did get permission from the people involved, you know, the victims like Athy and Marcy. I directly DM'd them and asked for their permission to do this. And I'm more so doing this because the document against this guy has been taken down so many times. But anyway, we're talking about this guy, Doppio. The name's Doppio, 25, male, asexual. Let me just say, that is far from the truth. I make stuff, I guess. Now, this guy had a lot of allegations come out against him recently, like a whole shit ton. And like I said, we're just gonna go through the document and basically catalog it all. Because I feel like he's already tried to get the document taken down multiple times, so I feel like he's gonna try and do it again. Alright, beware post, NSFW topics, trigger warning. Doppio Amor, what the fuck? I don't even know how to pronounce that name. Unnamed Sergal, Tanner Verfirth Calvert. So this document includes, but is not limited to, manipulation, art fraud, gaslighting, transphobia, NB-phobia, sexism, sexuality deception, threats, DUI with individuals in vehicle, battery, assault, sexual assault, and a bunch of other ones that I can't say for this video. And those awful ones. Now, the contents of this include the intro, mental health statement, testimonies, hyperlinks, and conclusion. This is a document bringing awareness to Doppio, who has been a dangerous member of our community and has gone without consequence for his horrific actions for too long. Below are testimonials of 30 people from con attendees, local friends, and past relationships that he has deeply hurt. The testimonies are here as a warning to all of you who have been around him. He will hurt you if he has the chance. He has not and will not ever change. This is who he is. He will manipulate you to think he is a good guy. This is a facade, a mask he wears. When it is removed, you will have a traumatic story, like those who have chosen to bring light on what he is capable of. Following the testimonies, we have grouped hyperlinks of other statements elaborating further, or those who could not reach out to this document to testify. Please understand that blurry photos, new information, and revived statements may render this document outdated. And trust me, there's a little bit of more info that we'll get to after reading this. Don't worry, it's not going to change your perspective. This guy is still a fucking monster. This guy was going for like a high score and being a piece of shit. Please check the Twitter thread this originated from to ensure the most refined information. Our priority is to make the most high quality statement possible to ensure that the victims are heard and organizations making pivotal decisions can do so confidently. Screenshots of the stories as well as written testimonies are included in this. Some have asked to remain anonymous, and that will be respected. Alright, now let's get to the testimonies. This is number 1 by Krypton. I'm Krypton, also known on social media and for affinity as Krypton Svinger. I've also got a green circle named Ushio, who you may have seen around. In any case, this is my experience with Doppio. I met him probably back in 2019 or so at a meet. He lived in San Angelo at the time, but would drive 4+ hours to attend DFW meets every so often. He was pretty chill and a bit quirky, but it didn't take long for him to start getting more touchy-feely, fetishizing my weight, body shape, among other things. This is my story. I'm sure it's pretty evident by his Twitter and other social media posts. Doppio is into heavier guys. I fall under that category, and unlike him, I do not like it. I've had issues losing weight, and up until recently have tried and failed multiple times. At first I thought my body, among other things. He'd come over and want to get physical, and I was still pretty sexually curious at the time, so I just let him. He never went fully sexual. He'd enjoy rubbing bellies and stuff. I did not enjoy that. I just let him because it made him happy. And while we did show privates once or twice, we never touched with them or did anything with them. Initial non-sexual and non-consensual touching. TFF 2020, I was forced into a lip kiss with him out of absolutely nowhere. I don't remember the circumstances, but I was very clearly remembering it happened. Starting, I'd say around 2021, he began to get a lot more touchy-feely with me at cons or meets. If he saw me, he'd immediately come up and rub my belly. No asking, no nothing, he'd just go for it. Even after being visibly uncomfortable and even telling him no, he never fully got the hint until later. When he eventually did start asking me, I'd usually say no. He started to get kind of cocky with that, because if he saw me, he'd ask and then say something like, "See, I'm asking first." Like he was expecting a reward or something for being, you know, a decent person. And other times, prior to the attempted SA, I'd say in 2021 and early 2022, Doppio would come over to my parents' place and we'd hang out. But more than once he wanted to touch bellies. I specifically remember one time he got on top of me and we were both shirtless and he just wiggled around rubbing his belly on mine. While I did let him, I was not comfortable and only said yes to make him happy and to stop begging me for it. My party and his attempted essay on me. Fast forward to August of 2022, I just moved out of my parents' place and into my new, to me, condo. I decided to have a housewarming party. I invited a whole bunch of friends over that night after one of our local fur meets, including Doppio. I believe he had work and still lived in San Angelo, so he didn't make it until very late, I believe between 9 and 10 p.m. Immediately, he came in very loud, and unbeknownst to me until much later, began to get very close and touchy-feely with people. Meanwhile, I'd gone into the bedroom to escape some of the noise and hang out with a friend who was in there also taking a noise break. In comes Doppio. The lights are off and both my friends and I are chilling in bed. Nothing sexual at all. Doppio comes in and lays down, first being calm but then tries to get physical with belly stuff. When I wasn't receptive to that, he gets up and goes to the end of the bed using his loud voice. He yells, "Gimme that ass," and grabs both pant legs by my feet and starts trying to pull my pants off. He ended up getting them halfway down as I was trying to hold them up and say, "Not now, no." He leaned over and it seemed like he was about to try and pull down my underwear too, but I was able to scoot off the bed and out of the room. He didn't follow immediately, but, and please excuse that I can't recall exact timing here because I was still pretty well in shock, came back out as some people were leaving and kept trying to non-sexually poke and touch more people. Many more people left, but I figured it was because it was getting to be after 11 p.m. now. I found out the next day that he was basically kicking people out of my own party and out of my own place by making them uncomfortable. I didn't know if it's because he wanted alone time with me, but he did end up spending the night since he had nowhere else to go, something I was very unprepared for. Sleepovers by anyone were not planned. Thankfully, I did have a futon and spare sheet in the living room, so that's where he stayed. I did end up locking my bedroom door that night. The biggest issue here is the attempted essay. It was pretty clear to me that he wanted and tried to do. He thought he could get away with it since I was finally out of my parents' place and others were distracted in the living room during the party. After my attempted essay happened in August 2022, I told a couple people that I trusted, one of which apparently had already heard from Doppio, who was more or less pre-warning them that this happened and that it wasn't sexual. Unfortunately at the time, they believed him over me because of his manipulation tactics. You may end up reading their testimony here because later, they were also assaulted by Doppio. It was then they realized my encounter wasn't what Doppio told them it was. It was what I told them. Doppio ended up moving to DFW in 2022 or 2023. I don't remember exactly when, but he lives here in the DFW area now. Doppio eventually found out I told people and told me to fuck off in May of last year. See below as I enlarge the image so it's clearly readable.
You fake piece of shit.
Fuck.
How fucking dare you? I had 3 people tell me to their face that you said I sexually assaulted you, pulled your pants off, and forced myself on you. How fucking dare you? I did not even remotely force myself on you. Yes, I wanted to have sex, and you even said you wanted to, but I wasn't gonna ever force it. I never even touched your pants, because I was on your bed that night, and nothing even happened. Neither of us were hard, or even touched each other. You are such a fake person that everyone has said about you is true. All you do is make drama and spread it. I want nothing to do with you ever again. We are not friends, and don't ever fucking contact me again.
He likely didn't know at the time, but this was 2 days after I became stuck back at my parents' place because I'd broken my foot the week. I live in an upstairs condo, couldn't use the stairs, so I couldn't go home. So my mental state was at an all-time low for quite some time. Note that my injury and then current living situation was not his fault. I fell down the stairs carrying 2 bags of trash and not using the railing while it was dark. That was on me. I'm just mentioning this because it puts context into where my mental state was at the time. However, you can clearly see in his message, he's trying to, first off, manipulate the story, making it sound like I lied to people and told them a worse version of events than it was. He's claiming that I said he forced himself on me, etc., when I never told anyone that. Now, it's possible that whatever story got around was repeated to him in that fashion, but it doesn't change that his claims are different from what happened. Along with calling me fake and creating drama, then cutting me off. By him using intimidation and my above mental state at the time, I tried to apologize for it, but he never responded. I ended up deleting our chat a couple days later because I no longer ever wanted to be reminded of him. Fast forward to October of 2023, and I went to a friend's birthday party, of which he attended, as well. As I stated earlier, I'd only told a couple people what had happened between us in the time since. I did tell a third friend, but they live out of state and went to TFC in Tulsa together, so I felt they needed to be aware in case they encountered Doppio at the con. This is relevant, I promise. I never wanted to act like an ass if I saw Doppio, whether at a con or something else. So whenever I did see them, we'd end up talking somewhat casually. I'd offered bis stickers at TTFC the one time I saw him then, and at his birthday party. We talked casually as if nothing happened. Just before I left the party though, he pulled me aside and apologized for everything. The touching, my housewarming party, and everything, as he said it was bothering him, and that he loved me and never wanted to hurt me. He'd gone to therapy, that's, I'm calling bullshit, and wanted to try and be better. As someone who didn't want any of this conflict to begin with, I accepted and we made it up, catching up for lunch a week or so later and being mostly chill since. I'm not saying having a fat fetish is bad. We all have our fetishes, I'm sure. The problem is when he tries to hide it with his body positivity posts on Twitter and TikTok. He stated multiple times he finds fat people beautiful and just wants to make us feel good about ourselves. Please understand, I'm not saying that we're not all beautiful in our own way, but as a person who is heavy and very much dislikes it and actively has been trying to lose weight, his constant body positivity borderline of fetish posting is a very messy territory for me. He has a large following, many of which are minors, and the fat fetish posts, and honestly this goes for any fetish, should be restricted to an AD account. However, in February of this year, 2024, he messaged me distraught again, asking to call. He once again told me he wanted to try to be better and asked what he could do. Along with the actions are louder than words argument I told him. I also suggested that he deletes a series of tweets that he made on his Safe for Work main Twitter that once again pretended to be body positivity, but was just in fact fetish posting. One of these I will show here, and that is the Church of the Belly. What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? What am I looking at? This Friday the 13th, you should join the Church of Belly. Plunge yourself to the higher cholesterol god, and you will find pleasure in his fat. This guy straight up was LARPing as Cult of the Lamb, but for heavy people. For the sake of space, I do have screenshots of all except the posts he took down initially, but will not post them here. If you are curious to see them, let me know. Out of these 5, Doppio only ever deleted one of them, the 4th link as of now. In March of this year, 2024, however, I was made aware of another victim who'd been affected and had cut off Doppio earlier that year. They were also made aware of more victims, including one who was scared to come to a fur mute that we both admin for because Doppio attended. As an admin of one of our local meets, we, as in me, friend, and other 3 co-admins, made the decision to ban Doppio from attending this meet. It's only one meet out of many in the DFW area, but it is one of the largest fursuit-friendly meets. As neither me nor the other friend admin wanted to be the one to deliver the news that he's been banned, another admin for our meet, it's 5 of us total for the and NSFW chats, and 2 hosts for the meet, with me and the other 2 assisting as well, delivered the message. Doppio came to me with the news he'd been banned, as did many of his other friends, quite a few who are mutuals with me. We soon realized that Doppio told a ton of people he'd been banned for no reason, and they came to us looking for information. As a team, we, as in the meet admins, decided not to disclose the reason for the ban out of fear of retaliation towards the victims. We refused to tell anyone the reason for the ban other than a mutual friend who also ran an invite-only fur meet, so they were aware and didn't let Doppio join. This is when I heard a version of the story that Doppio was telling his other friends. In short, while he told me and the others that he got banned for no reason, he was telling some of his other friends a very twisted version of events. Oh, he was telling lies. He claimed that he touched people non-sexually several years ago. That's not much better than... Non-sexually is not much better than touching them sexually. If you don't have consent, don't touch people at all. And hasn't in a long time and stuff like that. I don't have details as I'm just going by what one of them told me. I found out this a week before TFF and I heavily considered cutting him off then, but decided to wait as I didn't want to cause a conflict right before the con. When I woke up for work shortly before 10:30 a.m. Monday, I was made aware that Doppio had caught wind of us preparing a document and had tried to get ahead of the curve with his own apology on Twitter. I honestly have nothing really to say about it except the fact that he's blaming his Asperger's for sexually assaulting people is disgusting. I do remember that. I swear he tried to say he was autistic and that's why he was touching people. I swear. As a fellow Aspie, it's sickening that he's going to try and use that as a fucking crutch after hurting so many of us. At around 3:30 p.m., I took my work lunch break and worked on catching up with the other victims of this, as it had spread quite a bit on Twitter. After seemingly not receiving the unwavering support he likely craved, Doppio deleted his apology attempt off Twitter. Too bad many of us took screenshots while it was up. Every once in a while, I would poke Doppio about nerdy shit like the monthly siren tests, which I enjoy and he super doesn't, so he appreciates my reminders. His associations with me are effectively over as the amount of things I've learned today proves once and again that Doppio is a skilled manipulator and a pathological liar dressed in a dog costume. As today has gone on, I'm learning of more and more horrific things Tanner has done to others in the fandom. Of course his name's Tanner. I feel for them and I truly hope they're able to heal too. I'm also hoping other local meet hosts in the area take notice and act appropriately and bar him from them. That's not up to me. I'm also hoping that this can get around to convention staff and they are made aware, as Doppio goes to many and is a pretty large figurehead in those spaces too. As has likely been made clear at this point, stay far, far away from this guy. There's an April 15th update. At around 8:30 p.m., a friend of his and mine sent some screenshots of Doppio trying to twist what happened to me and admit to other things related to what he said to me back in May. The screenshot he references at the beginning of this whole rage message he sent me and that I showed above. I knew about one, but I need you to explain to me about all the others. Please understand I want to hear your side, but I also need to understand all this because as an SA survivor myself, I am troubled by all this. Can I call you? Did he just fucking stutter in his own message? I'd prefer you tell me here. I don't want to get mad and I want to be as fair as humanly possible, so I'm forcing myself to stay completely 100% neutral and zero emotionally blank. That's fair, and I will tell you everything. So yes, in the past, I have touched people in their bellies without consent. Multiple people, apparently. What, did he forget? Did he get hit with the fucking Doofenshmirtz fucking forget me ray? As for Ember, yes, I did have a moment when I grabbed their junk. We were cuddling and I mistook the vibe I got from him because he was erect. After that, we did talk and recognized, I can shoot you the chat, but they were still upset. As for the rest, me and Krypton tried to have sex at his birthday party, but nothing happened. We ended up laying on the bed naked. I did pull his pants down and say give me that ass as a joke, but again, nothing happened. Dude, that's such an epic prank. Can you imagine pulling someone's pants down and being like, oh, fucking pranked. He's a jokester ahead of our time. As for the rest, I have no idea what I did, cause now a simple belly touch is sexual assault. Mercy was the drunk one where I face planted in her belly, and that's all I can remember. Everything else, Dan saying I was transphobic, and I threw his friend on the bed when he had a broke leg. I'm still processing. Explain what happened with Krypton. He says you were sober when that happened. Well, prior to the party, we talked about fooling around. When I arrived, I talked to him about doing it because he was in the room with TJ and Stratus having sex. And he said when everyone leaves, I made a stupid dumb decision thinking he meant he wanted everyone to go home. So I basically kind of kicked everybody out. This man was so desperate that he just ended a whole party. We got to the room, he got on the bed, I pulled his shorts off, and we got naked. I tried jacking off to get hard, but I went off and basically looked at him and said this isn't gonna happen, and he agreed. That's not what happened. He's lying. Oh my god, there's more. Oh wait, before all this, like when we would hang out, I did touch his a lot, grabbed his belly and made comments because I was under the impression he was into me. We flirted, but later I realized his immature and wrong my... Wait, this guy fucking misspelled shit. I realized his immature and wrong my actions were, so he's stupid on top of being a criminal. I realized how immature and wrong my actions were. And what are you prepared to do to make this right? There's no this will blow over. You're trending on Twitter, and it's getting mass attention. So my question is outside of self-harm, which you should never do. What are you prepared to do? Take responsibility and show that you mean and want redemption? Granted, you need to understand redemption does not equal forgiveness, and you may never get forgiveness or absolution from people. But what are you prepared to do to take steps to show you want to change? I'm prepared to be honest and upfront about my actions towards others and leave with dignity, saying I will seek help. I cannot bring closure to those I've wronged. This is form of closure, and I can't make them feel any more. Getting off social media is a good first step, and talking to someone are viable first steps. It's not impossible to come back one day to the fandom, but even if you feel you didn't do wrong to others, it's how they feel. So I'm not cutting you out of my life, and neither is Angel, but you have a long and hard road to get. Has anything else happened? And I do mean anything? I don't know, I just can't stop about thinking about, the 25 other people. What are they gonna say? Oh, this is gonna be bad, man. Oh, really? Gee, you don't say. Yes, it is, and that's not the point. It shouldn't be what happens to you. This is their way to heal, and I want you to be 100% honest about one incident. Did you as a joke or otherwise jump up and do a Nazi salute at a TikTok party get-together? Oh, this is gonna be a part of the lore. I really want to get to that. Holy shit. Joking or otherwise, I want you to tell me the truth. Yeah, that was a joke. I was looking at Tuner's hair and thought it looked like Hitler. So as a joke, I did the Nazi salute. What, where is the fucking... Oh, this guy was wearing a ghost costume and I thought he looked like a Klansman, so I just went out and beat minorities. Wait, what the fuck? But guys, it was a prank. It's a joke. I'm being a little silly. It's a little silly goofy to, hail Hitler. Do you understand why people were angry, upset about that, at all? Yeah, it was super bad, very fucked up. I'm not a Nazi though, it's just a shitty joke. I know. I didn't think you were. This has put me in a horrible position. I know you are not evil or malicious, especially if there's even a chance that you can one day show you've changed. I believe in redemption. But bro, I can't ignore people you've hurt, knowingly or otherwise. There's doubt, and I've heard different versions of stories. That's what makes it so hard. Krypton's story? I can show you screenshots. Or who. That shouldn't be your concern at the moment on who talked to me. I'm fair at the end of the day, and I'm listening to both sides of any story, given if you have a screenshot or anything pertinent that backs it up. A claim, I would like to see it. Maybe so, but I have to ask, if you were offered by him saying you SA'd you, why did you explode in anger, especially since by that point you knew others were saying similar things had happened? This was back in May last year. I knew I touched him without consent, but I felt that accusing me of SA for literally what felt like no sexual activity or contact was, out of the blue. Like he was saying it to start drama at the time. If you really mean you seek redemption, do as you said you would. Leave social media and offer a legit apology. And when you come back, attempt to do better, and that's not to start drama when people are hurt. They want those who hurt them held accountable. It may be how you felt, but right now, it's not about you. It's about them. But I cannot forget SA being an SA survivor myself. Show you mean what you say you do, and do what needs to be done, and try and seek redemption. But I need distance and time. You've hurt me by betraying me and not telling me everything, and I will need that space for a while. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I let you down. I'm trying, but I will do what I can to be better. I will definitely give you space. In some of the early screenshots of this conversation, Doppio tries to explain what happened the night he tried to SA me. However, to make it sound like I wanted it, he conveniently mixed in some details from a completely different night one at my parents' house where, yes, we did get naked, and yes, we jacked off to try to get hard, but neither of us could stay, so we agreed to stop. This happened on a completely different day than the attempted SA. The fact he's trying to twist the story to make it sound like I wanted sex the night of my party is disgusting. Remember, those above screenshots are not a conversation with me, it's a friend, right side green message, of his and ours talking to Doppio. The person has since blocked Doppio and posted his own statement on Twitter as well. If you are a Fur Meat host, admin, or host of anything that has or currently hosts Doppio, I highly encourage you to revoke his permissions and ban him from your events. My story, and unfortunately the many others you will read here, are damning evidence this man is not to be trusted near you or around others. Thank you again for reading. Alright, victim number 2. My name is Dan, or Desperate Danny on social media. I was friends with Doppio for about 4 years, and it was absolutely hell. The time frame for most of this was from 2019 to 2023. Not everything will have dates, as the mistreatment was very consistent and constant recurring. It's important to the story that I mentioned I am female to male trans man and have a chubbyish build. Trigger warning, my experiences include transphobia, manipulation, body shame / unwanted sexualization plus touching, and physical harm. I also want to say before I go into things, I'm not writing all this happily. I wouldn't have been friends with Doppio so long if he hadn't made me laugh and been a nice friend at times, aside from obviously being guilt-tripped to not speak up. But it's important that I and other victims come forward together. This isn't some win for me, this is me having to speak up about someone I used to consider one of my best friends. He doesn't deserve for me to stay quiet just because we were friends a long time. He deserves to be held accountable for his actions, not just towards me, but what he did to every victim. I'm not even sure to start with Doppio's transphobia, as it was a huge portion of our friendship. This section is going to feel more like a rambled list of incidents that I remember than off the top of my head. It was a constant problem, so I'm sure even with that I list it will only be scratching the surface. Keep in mind, it happened so often I practically expected it every time we hung out. Holy shit. On one occasion, he came to hang over, and the first thing he said upon seeing me was, "You look like a..." Ooh, I can't say that word. I immediately had a private talk with him right there about why that hurt my feelings. He later told me my dick looked weird in my boxers while we were hanging out watching TV that night, obviously making fun of my packer, or female to male. Many times he'd mask his transphobia as innocent questions that easily escalate into just plain old transphobia. A good example is when he and I were on a late night drive together. It was a usual type of drive where you would just tell stories and talk to pass the time. Unfortunately, at one point the convo shifted and he said, "Can I ask you something? I don't want to offend you, but I want to ask." I could already tell it was going to be some BS like usual. So I said, "Go ahead," out of curiosity. Go figure, it was bullshit. He asked, "Why are you trans?" But why? This is literally like this is the guy, the news reporter. "Why are you gay?" But like that was an actual bit, and this guy is just blatantly a cunt. Why not just be a normal hot girl? Why don't you want to just be a girl? How did you know you were trans? Okay, but how? But would you want to be normal? I don't get it. Why? There's nothing wrong with being trans. Being trans is pretty base. But would you want to be normal? Are trans people not normal to this guy? I think they're pretty normal. So many questions, clearly not interested in a real answer, but just not happy with me being trans. Doppio didn't know me before I came out. He always knew me as Dan, but apparently he thought it was okay to tell our friends my dead name. I don't remember telling him it ever, so I can only assume he saw it on something in my house by accident, like medication. I don't consider him someone to purposely look for it. Regardless of it, he found it by accident didn't, or if I told him, he had no right to share it around like fun gossip. Thankfully, my friends told me that he was doing it, and I was pissed. Even today, I still find out from other people that he also told them. That's really shitty, actually. He made fun of my chest and junk a lot. If I'm in pajamas at a con to sleep, he will make a comment on how large my big boobas are. If I'm in boxers, he makes fun of the shape of my packer, or a comment that it's just a packer and I obviously don't have a dick. He'd make jokes aimed at how I could/can I even have sex. Like it's some mind-boggling puzzle that's his business. He does this because he sees the idea of trans men's bodies like a weird freak show to point at. He sees trans women's bodies as a sad missed opportunity of another man. When I first started playing with the idea of turning my Twitter into an NSFW account, he was immediately disgusted and unsupportive of the idea. He originally said that mersuiting was weird/gross and he could never do that with his suit. He currently does post NSFW in suit. He's a hypocrite. Yeah, that much is transparent. I don't even want to see what that looks like. I don't even want to know what I don't even want to know what his mersuit looks like. Then he brought it up that it would be very gross to see an NSFW post by me because I'm gay and I don't want to see my best friend's vagina or I'm gay. I don't want to see my best friend's vagina or woman stuff or whatever. This guy is literally the stereotype that, like, if you're not a gay white guy in the furry fandom, you're just gonna get fucking killed. This guy is literally that stereotype, like, embodied. Making it a key point that he didn't consider me a man and that he thought whatever I did had to appeal to him, for some reason as if I wasn't doing it for myself. He feels a huge sense of entitlement over people's bodies, making sure to always remind me how gross my body was to him as a gay man. To sum up how often he'd make transphobic remarks to me, I'd say it happened at least 3 times every time we hung out over the span of 4 years. And each time I'd have a talk with him on why it's not okay, and he'd say he wouldn't do it again. He never changed, and the transphobia was in no way limited to just me. I know at least 3 of my friends dealt with the same problems. I did, and finding this out was the nail in the coffin for me putting up with Doppio. Doppio is not a stranger to manipulation. It's absolutely his go-to strategy the moment he's in trouble for something. He will say whatever he's done is because of his autism and give a half-assed apology like it's a joke. So many times I gave him second chances, and I talked with him believing that maybe I wasn't doing my best to understand the situation. Obviously, it was an excuse because autism doesn't make you do this stuff, but I was guilt-tripped into believing everything he was doing to me was somehow my fault. Even when he had falling outs with other friends, he would manipulate me to think everyone just had it out for him. And he was a poorly misunderstood autistic person that no one ever understood. Everyone has a bone to pick with Doppio. Everyone just wants this guy's head for no reason, guys. There's no valid reason as to why we could all hate this guy. As his friend, I would feel awful and try even harder to stay his friend despite him treating me bad. He'd tell lies about other people/their partners to make me believe him further, even trying to get me to ask for his ex to take him back. Holy shit. Something I never fell for because I was friends with them and was at the point of discovering just how much Doppio had been lying about. If you were friends with Doppio right now and he says he's going to change or give some bullshit excuse, he's lying. If he's telling you everyone is just mean to him for no reason, he's lying. It's not a secret Doppio has a fetish for bigger bodies and feederism, feeding someone to make them bigger. This guy would love Kirby. It's a huge part of his personality. There's nothing wrong with having these types of fetishes. What does become a problem is when you push your fetishes on others and make them uncomfortable with side comments/touching, while also playing it off as body positivity. I've always hated how Doppio hides his fetish as just being super body positive. It's a huge mask he's honestly not well at wearing. To put things simply, I was touched many times as a joke, and he'd constantly make sure to bring up that he was only into guys, so it was obviously all just silly, harmless jokes. Guys, it's just touching people without their permission. Just a goof. Just a little gaff. I lost count with how many times he's grabbed my thighs or made moaning noises touching me, especially regarding my stomach. Anytime I made a comment about how I was working out or dieting, he'd immediately start suggesting I get fatter instead and keep my big, sexy belly. Usually followed by him touching my stomach or touching his own with a small rant about how he loves bigger bodies. This was not body positivity, this was him pushing his fetish on me. I was constantly giving comments about how I need to get bigger, and that I'd be ruining my body's appeal if I got in shape, as if he had any say in what I do with my body. Before I didn't have body weight image problems. Yeah, I have body dysmorphia, but that has to do with me being trans, not my weight. After being friends with Doppio, his comments on my body have made me completely uncomfortable with my weight and made me not like my figure. I've worked hard to get comfortable again with my weight, but he absolutely left a still standing negative impact on how I see my body. I'm grossed out by how he kept sexualizing me when I clearly didn't want it, especially the touching. I dealt with this crap for 4 years. Throughout our entire friendship, and even after Doppio constantly caused me physical harm or did something that would have hurt me if it went wrong, he's known since the beginning that I have back/joint problems and wasn't a good swimmer. He knew this as I constantly had to remind him after he hurt me again. The very first time I ever met him IRL, I was checking in to get my badge at TFS. He pointed at me yelling, then ran up to me and shoved me very hard. I had no idea who he was, and he had to explain we'd talked a few times on Insta, so I brushed it off as him just overly excited. This unfortunately was a huge foreshadowing for our entire friendship. It's important to note that many times I'd been hurt by him picking me up, shoving me, etc., but the main thing I want to focus on are my river trip, the Christmas trip I invited him to, and TFF. These events are in order, and each time he would guilt me with his autism to temporarily forgive him until he hurt me again. A solid pattern throughout everything. This guy places autism like a skip card in Uno. After TFS 2019, we had become good friends and chatted a lot on Insta/Hangout IRL to where I invited him on a river trip. I did yearly with my family. It was overall fun until it got to getting in the water. I'd let him know I can't swim many times on the trip so he'd understand why I stayed in shallow water and would feel free to swim whenever he wanted. I'd let him know I can't swim many times on this trip so he'd understand why I stayed in shallow water and would feel free to swim wherever he wanted. At some point he convinced me I could ride on his back and he'd just swim in the deep water. It sounded like a good idea to me, so I got on. During the ride he suddenly started sinking and I quickly noticed and told him to stop because I can't swim. He laughed and told me to try swimming while sinking. Needless to say, I started drowning/splashing around, freaking out, begging him to save me. He eventually did decide to pick me up and found the whole thing a silly joke. This was a lighter situation involving water. This was my first official time noticing he liked to cause people stress/harm for humor. He literally like Jason Voorhees to this person. What the fuck? ACFI 2020 is where things got more serious. I was rooming with Doppio and 2 other friends after shooting for a while. We all came up to the room to rest and de-suit. My other friends put on the TV, and I de-suited and laid on the bed to relax. I had previously let them all know I was having heat exhaustion/knee pains as we headed up. Well, after I laid down, assuming everyone was settling in, Doppio, without any prior warning or permission, body slammed me while I was half asleep. He basically belly flopped on me so hard it knocked the wind out of me, compressed me so hard I couldn't breathe or scream. I couldn't even move. I was woken up to suffocating, unable to do anything about it. I could hear him laughing, finding the whole thing funny. After what felt like 2 whole minutes of panic, then getting up, I began losing consciousness. I can best describe it as being scared but feeling sleepy. It was terrifying. Then my friends got in the room, urged Doppio to get off because I probably couldn't breathe. I felt him wiggle as a joke to rub it in almost before finally getting up laughing. I was not happy. I tried not to make a super huge deal because we were all rooming together at the con, but I was mad/traumatized. And we did talk about it later. Again, him intentionally causing stress/pain for fun. I invited him on a very personal family Christmas trip in 2021 that involved a huge mansion with a pool. My family is not rich. This is a gift experience for us, so it meant a lot to me. I invited Doppio because despite everything, we were still friends at the time. Unfortunately, this was the worst experience I had involving him and water. I couldn't swim still at this point. During the night, a group of us decided to go check out the pool. It's important to note we got dressed to swim before realizing it was about to snow, so everything was very ice cold. After reaching the pool, we decided to just look at it for a moment since it was too cold to swim. Leaning in to look at it, I had a bad feeling and turned to Doppio, stating, "I can't swim, do not push me in, I am serious, I can't swim." Doppio backed off for a moment, and the second I looked back at the pool, he shoved me in the deep end. The way this pool was built and where I was standing was an absolute miracle that I didn't bash my head open on the sharp decorative rocks lining the hot tub that sat in the middle of the pool. I remember looking at the rocks as I was falling and thinking, a fucking course he would end up killing me. I'd already dealt with so much from him that I wasn't even surprised, just disappointed the Christmas trip was gonna end like this. I missed those rocks by a few inches, thank God, and immediately started drowning in the pool, freaking out and coughing from breathing in water. I could hear him laughing just like every time before, go figure. Eventually I did reach out to the rock ledge and pull myself out. I remember being scared, cold, still freaking out, but unbelievably mad he'd once again done something like this to me with water. I chewed him out for a second before calming myself down, not wanting to ruin the trip. We all got in the hot tub, and I just relaxed being warm. I still remember looking at the rocks, 100% sure I was going to crack my head open and drown. I had made him a custom plush as a gift for the trip, and I felt so stupid for having spent so much time on a gift worth $380 to someone who kept hurting me even at the vacation I invited them to. TFF 2023 was our last physical altercation. I'd stopped being friends with him in 2022 and just avoided him at cons. He knew I didn't like him anymore, but it seemed he didn't fully get it yet and figured we were still at least mutuals, so sometimes he'd say hi as we crossed paths. It didn't bother me because it was nice to basically almost never interact. Unfortunately, this situation was very serious to me and we almost got into a real physical altercation. One of my close friends, Omen, and their partner Hound were at the con with me simply just walking down into the main sky bridge. It's important to note that Omen is physically handicapped due to an accident a few years ago. Omen is very local about this and has an optional cane/wheelchair they can use when walking is too much. Doppio is also very aware of this. He just doesn't care. Doppio charged towards us, excitedly screaming something, and specifically targeted Omen. The moment I saw Doppio, I got a bad feeling in my gut, and the moment I realized he was charging full speed towards Omen, I started running over yelling for Doppio not to touch Omen. He didn't listen. It felt like torture watching everything happen in slow motion. Doppio picked up Omen as everyone was screaming to stop, then squeezed Omen and proceeded to swing/sway him around like a toy before shoving him back down to the floor. I was still running over and calling for Doppio to stop. I was so pissed. Omen's partner quickly started checking on him. Doppio lost interest in them both after they got mad. His excuse, I forgot. I forgot this guy with cane and wheelchair, I forgot not to do this. With a shrug, like it was no big deal. Once he saw me coming over, he got excited and ran towards me. We were both in suit for this. It's not important, but I want to note that Doppio comes over to give me a hug, and I immediately start chewing into him about how he just clearly hurt Omen and just left him on the floor not caring. Doppio made up some excuse again, clearly wanting to play it down. I saw red. We were already close because of the hug, so I pulled his suit head down more to hear me as I again told him he needed to stop doing crap like this. He took this as an invitation to horseplay. We got physical pretty quickly. The tension of wanting to fight was obviously there, but we didn't want to cause a scene, so it was more of a muffled argument and a few punches in between us super close together, followed by him shoving me away so I'd hit the floor. I got up and we continued before noticing some concerned people started obviously trying to figure out if the two fighters were playing or fighting. We didn't want the situation to lead to anyone getting in trouble, so we played it off as playing at the end before putting our heads back on again and splitting. I went over to my friend to help Omen. We were all pissed. Doppio continued his con, not a second thought past it not being his problem. Doppio has time and time again hurt people from and left with no real consequences. He will constantly say sorry and hurt you again over and over. Before discussing my experience with Doppio, I must briefly discuss my history. Though it might seem random, it's vital to the context on the lines he's crossed. Growing up, I lived in a very Christian town, which made coming out difficult. On top of that, my stepdad was very abusive, both physically and verbally. Dealing with all this at the same time threw me into severe depression. I was alone. I was so hurt, I wanted out, and I tried. Thankfully, I'm still here today, but because of that, I struggle with trauma and my neck being touched even by my partner, who I've known for 3 years. Furthermore, when I was about 6, a grown man pinned me down. He bit my stomach to the point of drawing blood, which furthers my lack of wanting to be touched at all. This to say, I have substantial boundaries about being touched, specifically on my stomach and around my neck. I struggle with physical touch, even with my partner. So now that you know that, back to Doppio. What happened wasn't all at once, but throughout several interactions and get-togethers. I met Doppio through a mutual friend. The first time we got together, we just made silly videos for TikTok and played games the first time. After a few meetings, eventually he convinced me to cuddle. Let me preface this by saying this is the first person I physically met in the fandom. I was also a virgin at the time until I met my current partner, during which he slowly made his way lying on top of me. I shrugged it off as something normal until later I initially felt small thrusts randomly, but they quickly became more frequent. I was in 3 layers of clothes, underwear, Under Armour, and my suit. When I asked to stop, he said it was just a reflex, that he couldn't help it, and that it happens. Then he wrapped his arm around my neck, which furthered my discomfort. On a later visit, he threw me on a bed and laid on me. A short time later, he said he was uncomfortable like this. He then proceeded to spread both my legs, put himself in between, and scoot up as far into the new space as possible. I was too shocked and uncomfortable to say anything, but I was now on my back, legs spread around him with his crotch against me. I found myself in a sex position, unable to move due to being laid upon, and through 3 layers of clothing I could still feel it. It only stopped after he started humping, then I made an excuse to go home. Later he was rubbing my belly. Again, I had 3 layers of pants and 2 layers of shirts when I visited. I was almost always in my suit because he always wanted to make TikToks. Slowly over the next few minutes, he unbuttoned my kigu and lifted my shirt under it, where he then rubbed my belly by rubbing his face in it. I told him I didn't like it, then I was uncomfortable with his chin on my stomach, but instead of stopping, he proceeded to bite me until I was able to pull my shirt down. I told him about the biting and how it made it feel, and even after I told him how I felt about being touched before any of this happened, he didn't care about my boundaries, especially around my neck or stomach. Even when I saw him at cons, he would try to pick me up even after I broke my silence while suiting, especially he said no. After all that, I started struggling to enjoy conventions whenever I saw him. It made me uncomfortable, and so he became one of the reasons I stopped going altogether and haven't gone in almost 2 years. The last being Stratosphere 2022. I came out of my shell for the first time, met people, and became more social. The fandom became a place where I felt I wasn't alone, a place of comfort and belonging, but it didn't last long. After Doppio, I quickly became uncomfortable around people I didn't know, and had difficulty meeting or trusting new people. I stopped going to cons and friends altogether, and struggled to make new ones, and my depression started to come back. For the longest time I didn't tell anyone, no one knew, not even my partner. They had moved on entirely from being friends with Doppio, and didn't want to bring up more issues or create new problems, so I felt alone. I tried telling my own family about my stepdad, and they didn't believe me, and I felt like it would be that all over again. To be honest, I just wanted to move on and forget. He blocked me on every social I had, and even took down the TikToks we made, which I was okay with, but what hurt was that he deleted all our Telegram chats, and every conversation we had, which frustrated me the most. The photos I sent him of his bite marks asked him to stop. He just said, "Oops, sorry," and went on like it wasn't a problem. In other texts, he asked me if I wanted to do/try anything, and then blamed me for leading him on when I told him I wasn't comfortable, because I was into someone at the time. I didn't think they would want me fooling around with someone else at the beginning of our relationship. I genuinely felt terrible, like I did something wrong. Alright, here's one from an anonymous source. It wasn't all too serious, but definitely still unwanted and uncalled for. He had commissioned me to make him some new hand paws for his 1.0 fursuit, and when I got them finished, I offered to deliver them at the next fur meet, or he could drive down to my place to pick them up. He didn't want to wait for the meet, so he said he'd drive down to get them the next day. That comes along, and I meet him outside with the paws. He hugged me as thanks, and then tried to kiss me too. Luckily, I'm short AF, so I was able to duck my head, so all he caught was air. He tried this again on a couple other occasions, but I was able to dodge most of them with my hair or cheek too. Dodge this creep like fucking Mayweather. Alright, victim number 5. I met him back in 2019 and roomed with him and a few friends at TFF. Right off the bat, he was very intense and touchy, and the times he would be in the room, I would always be on edge, because he would constantly do the absolute most to be physically or verbally aggressive, usually with sexual undertones. And a lot of the times overtones too. He would do things ranging from literally pouncing on me and laying on top of me with all his weight on me while I was just minding my business laying in my bed on my phone, to grabbing or rubbing my stomach and saying extremely inappropriate fetishized things about my belly. He did this multiple times despite me telling him to stop every time. I remember him saying some inappropriate things about my gender identity as a trans man a handful of times as well, but I don't remember the specifics. I tried actively avoiding him after that con and unfortunately ended up seeing him again at TFF 2022. When my roomies who used to be friends with him invited him up, he proceeded to say hello to me by doing the belly rubbing thing and saying inappropriate stuff again right in front of my partner. This time my partner told him to stop. About a day later, we ran into him on the con floor and he opened his arms up, seemingly trying to give me a hug, trying to be friendly and cordial. I went in for a hug. He then proceeded to pick me up. The second my feet come off the ground, I repeatedly said stop and to put me down. But he started to swing me around before literally throwing me across the con floor. I am disabled and wear a visible leg brace due to an accident I was in that Doppio knew about. He knew that I have a chronic pain and arthritis in my leg, but yet still decided to pick me up and throw me while I was in suit, and my friends and my partner were telling him to stop. That was 100% my last straw with him. Victim number 6. Hi, I have an indirect testimonial from a friend of mine who would like to remain anonymous, but I also have my own. For my friend. At TFF Saturday 2023, he cornered him in an elevator intentionally and shoved him into the wall, and later at a friend's house punched him in the face for supposedly no reason. While nothing physical happened to me, I was relaxing in a friend's room at TFF 2023 eating pizza when Doppio and another of my friend's roommates walked in. He had a relatively pleasant conversation until he started to become handsy with my roommate. I remember the name, something like Panda. They started touching each other under their pants. This was my first interaction with Doppio and the other person. I wasn't asked about my comfort or were my boundaries even considered. I was glancing around the room and at my friends for assurance that this was inappropriate and had no exchanging looks. I was uncomfortable and felt generally violated. I left quickly along with my friends after gathering the confidence to stand. When I expressed that the situation was inappropriate for my friend, I was told that this is what I should have expected, and that if I couldn't handle it, I shouldn't attend room parties. My name is Sabrina Lee. I don't want to be anonymous. I'm relatively confident if I hadn't gotten the courage to leave that they would have gone all in and fucked with an unwilling person in the room. Zero regard. I have pretty low self-esteem and body confidence. I rarely have been happy with my body and try to get a better body I can personally to be proud of. I do have people that tell me I look good and everything, that I don't have that much of a belly or anything, but I feel I do and I really don't like it personally. Not that I say having a belly is bad, just that that's not what I want for my body. Well, I usually don't let people rub my chest or my stomach because it makes me feel super self-conscious. It makes me feel gross, and that I get really in my own head about it. Doppio has gone and just started rubbing my stomach and giggling and saying he loves my belly and all, which doesn't help me feel comfortable with how I look. I have stated that to him, but he still had done it. I never really made a big deal about it because I just didn't want the confrontation or to fly off the handle or something, but I still didn't like it, and so I would try to avoid him some. Just because I knew that every time he got around me, he would rub my stomach just out of nowhere. Alright, victim number 8. When I first started talking to them, I never got any red flags. They were hypersexual, which I can understand can be off-putting, but I'm also hypersexual, so I was vibing. Where it went wrong was they started to get really pushy and handsy, and it felt like they felt something from me. I'm not going to act like I wasn't flirting back in the beginning, but requests became demands. Eventually I started to get guilt-tripped into some crazy thoughts and felt forced to touch or kiss or get grabbed in places, or at times I didn't want. So I did what I thought was best and just cut them off. I have health issues and substance abuse issues, and anytime I tried to mention that I was losing weight or getting fit, I would constantly be gaslit with things like, you just need to work on your lung capacity, or I think you should stay big and just work on your muscles to support your body. No matter how often I tried to impress, I was unhealthy. Their focus was on how I looked to them and not what was best for me. So like I said before, when I started talking to them,
I never got any red flags. They were hypersexual, which I can understand can be off-putting, but I'm also hypersexual, so I was vibing. Later at a convention, a while after I hadn't heard from them for a while, they saw me a year or so later at a con and stopped me and confronted me, trying to make me feel bad for ghosting them. Then they went to kiss me on the lips. Even though I pulled away, they pulled into the kiss in the hotel lobby. And I know I didn't say anything in the moment, but I would have said no if I had been asked. It was also fast. I said before, I'm pretty hypersexual and I'm a flirt. I like fooling around and having fun, but it just felt like I was being assaulted, and that stuck with me. I've had too many bad interactions with them, and I know my experiences are not that extreme, but I got lucky and was able to move on from all that before it got worse, which it sounds like it was much worse for others. All I can say is I hope all this does two things: makes him question his actions, and take action to change and be better, and also ward off any potential future harm to others that might not know at first. To the friends who have been hurt, I'm so sorry, and I hope we can all move forward from this. Alright, victim number 9. I met Doppio after I got back from Afghanistan through my suit maker. I was doing contract work over there. It's my only way to escape from nonsense at home. So I went over there, stayed for a long time. Well, I ended up at a point where I was in a very bad spot mentally, depressive. One of them, and he was somebody, of course, manipulating me into thinking he's a friend. I have body image issues. I'm a little more heavy set. I've got a belly, granted. I don't do anything about it. But I don't like it. I don't like being touched, and over multiple instances, he's fetishized me and me, even after I told him we're not friends anymore. I'm done with you. He would still come up to me and touch me and me in an inappropriate manner. In public, in front of my other friends, and I know it's his fetish. He demonizes people for trying to lose weight. That's also another problem among the fucking thousands. And that's gotten to a point with me, it's so bad. You know when you're in a suit and people rub your belly because you're a cute animal and you give them belly rubs? I can't. I'm working through it. It's been like freaking 2 years, but it's still like something that's physically now uncomfortable for me because of the amount of times and how I was sexualized to him. He told me he is going to introduce me to so many people and they are all local friends, and I'm like, awesome. Well, he didn't do that. All he actually did was gate kept them anytime he would leave the room. I'm like, hey man, where are you going? Knowing that I don't know anybody. I'm just almost alone, and he's like, oh no, I'm just gonna go walk around. Well, he did many things during the con. Turns out he was hanging out with literally the people he said he was going to introduce me to. I had ended up meeting him months later, and different events, but he kept all of them away from me and made sure that I stayed alone. He also broke both the beds in the hotel room by being aggressive and body slamming people. What the fuck? Which was my problem because it was my fucking hotel bed. This guy acts like a fucking WWE wrestler. What the shit? Stratosphere rolls around. I get a call. I'm not there at the con. I'm working, and he calls me. He's like, I'm suicidal. I'm going through all this at the con. He's at the con at the time, and again, I have a problem with suicide. Still do. It's a problem. So I have empathy, and I'm assisting him and talking him down and all this. Well, it turns out 3 other people saw him at a sex party. He wasn't running around the con trying to kill himself. It was a lie. Also, he said he was going to jump off the top floor. I didn't know how tall the hotel was. It's like there's only one balcony to jump down and it's a floor, and I don't think he would ever be able to do that. So he lied. Manipulated me with that. I don't even know why. I wasn't even at the con. He's a monster. He hides it behind this cute, oh look, I'm just a fun guy to be around. This manipulative facade he puts on, it's fake. That's not who he is. He's a danger. Victim number 10. I originally met him at AntherCon 2022 and snapped on him while drunk. I assumed it because I was drunk. Then at Midwest Fur Fest 23, he was really touchy and pushy and, well, grabbed if you catch what I'm saying. I didn't want to post about it or share it myself, but I wanted to essentially let anyone know. I feel a lot less crazy now that this has all come out, and I'm sorry if you had to deal with them too. I don't care if my story is shared, but being that he was in several group chats of mine and whatnot, I really didn't feel comfortable sharing it under my name, I've since removed him and honestly never knew what to do because he'd always told me people overreacted to the things he did. It made me feel like I'd be accused of the same and belittled. I didn't need that, especially at the time with everything that was happening in my life. Sorry for sharing this all with you. Don't be sorry about that. Victim number 11. Mine was a brief, albeit uncomfortable encounter. I met him at TFF and we walked around JoJo and talked a little. Then I'd see him at other cons and make brief small talk. One time at a con, in front of said friend, he came up and started rubbing my belly and acting really sexual with me, when we had never had that sort of encounter before, nor was I okay with it. Sort of just froze, since then I'd warned people I'd see talking to him about what he did. I didn't think it was a pattern. After that I just avoided him and warned people about what he did. It was so weird how he was so sexual with me randomly. I don't normally go into a fight or flight mode, but I froze up big time with that. This is a supporting witness statement. My name is Azareth. I witnessed 2 inappropriate/non-consensual encounters involving a dear friend of mine and Doppio Amor. Noting that all parties were in suits both times, the first happened in TTFC 2022. I was with my friend when Doppio stopped them mid-breezeway to chat. This is normal at cons, but I noticed he was talking in a flirtatious tone and kept petting my friend's belly / touching their arms. My friend was pretty quiet, and after rejecting Doppio's advances to room and have fun with them at the next TFF, he eventually left us. My friend was left nearly catatonic at the exchange. I learned that they froze up because they didn't know how to tell Doppio to stop / go away. The second time was at NX 2023. It was Sunday, and it was one of the times we would suit up on the floor together. My friend was beside me when Doppio wandered over and cut between me and my friend to start making little sounds / flirting with them. My head has limited vision, but the moment I saw him rubbing on my friend's belly, I snapped after glancing up at my friend's head for a second. I got between them and yelled through my head, there was a crowd I had to project through my suit, and said, "No, you need to ask for consent." He mumbled something back at me and backed away, but it left me shaking with rage. Since Annex 2023, we spotted him again at Annex 2024, but we had to actively dodge him because friend was very uncomfortable. No one should have to attend a con worried someone will touch them inappropriately, unprompted, and not everyone has the ability to stop someone from touching them in the moment. Some freeze, and that is not a green light to do whatever you want. Because it's a fur con. That's my piece. Alright, victim number 13. My name is Freya. I met Doppio in 2019, and I should have stopped there. The things Doppio has done for me has ruined my social life, my mental stability, and has caused so many issues in my life. I was really close with him and we hung out a lot. When he broke up with his boyfriend at the time, he lied to everyone about what happened, that his partner ended it and not Doppio, despite the opposite being true. After they broke up, Doppio and I hooked up, and he destroyed my trust in a way that I can never get back. I was heavily sexually, mentally, and physically abused as a child. Doppio called me one night, yelling at me, upset that I flirted with his ex. I was having a rough time with family issues, and I had a breakdown. He apologized and admitted he went too far, and forgave him. But not a week later, he slept with me for revenge against his ex. Doppio told me he hadn't slept with anyone for a long time, and I always make people wear protection if we're hooking up. But without warning or consent, he took the condom off and forcefully grabbed my face with his fingers and finished in my mouth. Oh. I was a lot younger and scared at the time, so I kept quiet. I didn't know what to do. It reminded me of what happened when I was a child. Said ex called me and told me of current things that were happening, including him attending sex parties. It was later he admitted to me that he lied about his sexual history. I cut Doppio off, and he tried manipulating me by guilt-tripping me, i.e., "Are you really going to throw away years of our friendship?" and "I bought you a Godzilla keychain." What the fuck justification is that? Oh my god, this guy's a fucking monster. Months later, he told me later that he was getting therapy and he was getting better. Add that to the bullshit alarm. That everything that happened was a one-time mistake. He lied about all of it, but it fooled me and I forgave him. Months later, I decided to try to see if I can cope with my childhood through the baby fur community, which Doppio quickly explored, putting me in public and making extremely uncomfortable comments. I told him multiple times to stop. When I came out as a trans woman, he sent links to sissy faggot clothes that he'd love to put me in. I immediately told him how wrong that was. He didn't apologize, but tried to defend his stance. If I ever wore a diaper, he'd immediately grab my crotch without asking. At his housewarming party, he continued to grab my belly and ass. I left the ABDL community because of it. I thought maybe he was drunk or just dumb until someone at the party said they had a similar experience. I want to cut in here. I do think this guy is a moron. Then one of my friends, and then another friend of mine, told me about him. I can't leave my room anymore. I don't enjoy cons. I don't enjoy my own fur meet I run anymore. I've been so scared of everything, and I'm terrified writing this. Thank you for listening. Official posting. Here's victim 14. Official posting, I will keep it as short as best I can. I have not been sexually assaulted or harassed by Doppio, to just make that clear. I have, however, been sexualized multiple times. One being a video on TikTok, 100k followers, keep in mind, sexualizing me in a maid dress. The photo was provided by me, but I was not told that it would be used until after it was posted. How he had asked for the photo was, in exact words, "Nikki, I need a slutty photo, not nude." The fact he came to me for that was sexualizing me as a person. 2. The fact it was posted to his main TikTok account with over 100k followers may or may not have ruined every aspect of my social media presence. Once it was posted, I wasn't sure how to feel, so I let it be. I've been told my belly is cute and I should gain weight, even after I expressed that I would like to lose weight and better myself for my health. I've been bullied all throughout my life about my appearance by kids in school, my friends, and even my family. I've never been perfect for anyone, so him adding to that did not help. Doppio has been a friend, a good friend for a long time. As I said before, he has never sexually assaulted me or harassed me. He was there when I was sexually assaulted multiple times at a convention at 4 a.m. and helped me get through it. He even respected the fact that my fiance and I are together and would not make any sexual remarks to me. Though, with someone this close having this many accusations with backed evidence, I'm beginning to think everything was a lie and that it was all a ploy to get in my pants somehow. I'm not comfortable speaking about this. Please do not come to me about this matter any further. I am leaving it in the past, and moving on the best I can. Oh shit. Oh shit, alright, let's look at these screenshots. Oh my god, what is this? Honestly, I'm curious about all bodies. Hell, I want to have sex with a midget just to see how it goes. You can't say that word, man. You gotta say little people. You say that word, you're discriminating against them. I've been with both skinny and obese. Nobody ever sees that far from me, so they assume I'm all for fat. But I got a few crushed on twinks. Well, I will definitely throw you around and lay on you with my belly. Just no sex stuff. I respect you as my friend, and you and Kilo's relationship. Oh, here's the screenshot of them asking for the slutty photo. Thank you. That's perfect. One sec, almost done. What's the video about? Remember, am only dear now. I may need you to be a fox this one time. I swear. Alright, victim 15. This occurred at Anthrocon 2023, on the Saturday of the con. I was at a room party and laying on a bed, no intentions to do anything, and very much just sat there talking with a friend I made. Doppio arrived at the party towards 9 p.m. with a few friends as well. Out of nowhere, later in the night, he decided to get on my legs. Mind you, I never once spoke a word to him other than Twitter a month ago. I believe he was talking to other individuals towards my right as he was on me, and out of nowhere began to use his teeth to bite on my lower left arm. I was more so in wanting to say anything of it, but merely accepted the bite. Completely non-consensual and just out of the blue. Bit of a side note, but I had a friend ask as Doppio left why he had very big ego energy. He asked why Doppio called everyone in the room my children. Oh, that is not aging well with some of the allegations against him. But was given a response that he was merely joking and not being serious. I'm not too sure what to make of that, but I found that behavior has given him a belief that because of his popularity, it's an excuse to the actions he causes. Around late July or early August of 2023, I had started a conversation with Doppio. I had brought up how I remembered him biting me on the arm in a blunt way, just that I remembered. His response was a sticker that more so had an expression like, what is that? What emoji is that? Oh, is that the yikes emoji? But not once apologizing. Jesus. What the fuck? Alright, victim 16. I knew him on and off for a few years. We were mutuals on Twitter, and then I unfollowed him off Twitter due to the content he was posting having lots of flashing lights, which I wasn't into, and it made me sick. He then made up some story about me unfollowing him because him and I didn't have sex. Obviously he goes deep after chubby people, and I'm a chubby guy, so he was trying to fuck for a while. So at the end of Anthrocon, in an event to kind of squash any sort of beef he had with me over non-existent lack of sexual interest, so he comes in my hotel room, and my husband leaves to get some food. And once my husband leaves, the guy pretty much goes like into this primal stage where he's all over me, and as you can see from the photos, he just starts ripping into my neck with his teeth. He keeps trying to look me in the eyes, and I'm looking away because I have no idea what's going on because him and I didn't discuss doing that. What the fuck? We did discuss possible sexual activity, but nothing like that extreme. So he is legit asking me why I won't look at him. And you would think it would stop there, but nope, he keeps biting me and trying to kiss me. I don't kiss anyone but my husband. Eventually he gets off me and uses a vibrator to finish, goes into the bathroom and takes a shower in my hotel room, and leaves after he leaves. Lamb legit looking in the mirror, basically bleeding from the neck, terrified because I had a job interview like the next day or so, and I really care about how my face looks. So now it's Sunday night and I have to walk around with a swollen neck, and I'm legit freaking out in the lobby of the West Inn telling people what happened. Holy shit, this guy pulled a Wilbur Soot. Oh my god. Most of these events happened face to face in person. I met Doppio early 2020 when he had visited a friend of mine back when I lived in West Texas, and we all went out clubbing together. My first impressions of meeting him in person was a little interesting. Upon meeting him, he was very excited to meet me, and due to the puppy gear I was wearing and my physique, which he commented on almost immediately during introductions, this didn't bother me at first. We were in a club setting and dressed up. I took it as a compliment. Fast forward later to July 2020. Doppio picks me up and takes us on a river trip. My then at the time just friend Danny, after arriving to his place and unpacking my stuff, I was getting ready to end the day before feeling his body lay directly on top of mine as a surprise. I was laughing it off at first, but then slowly realized that after the first couple of taps, I was still being crushed. After a while, he decided to get up, which at the time I didn't think too much about it. I was more or less focused on the trip ahead. The same evening, I would get my chest gripped very hard and played with for a moment, laughing and giggling, while I was just standing there. Which as a chubby person to me was very uncomfortable, but again, I didn't think too much on it and was just a little speechless after. I just wanted to hang and see my high school friend at the time and just want to forget about it. Fast forward to January of 2021, more non-consensual belly grabs and jiggles happen at his place. I was over to see my friend again with him, and he was my only way down there. I didn't want to say anything in fear of making the trip awkward, and again, not thinking too much of it. This pretty much sums up a little of the touching and breast grabbing that made me very uncomfortable and body dysphoric. Considering this was a time where I was really trying to focus on my body and physique, which I have made plenty comments about around him. When it came to catching up and goals we wanted to pursue, each time I would mention it, I would immediately be hit with, "Oh, but you're so cute, and that belly of yours is so adorable. You should stay fat and just embrace it. You shouldn't try to work on yourself. Improving yourself? No, that's silly, goofy. You should stay how I want you to stay, guys." Yada yada. At this point, we were already kinda on rocky terms of friendship. After getting together with my now partner Danny, he had made comments that Danny and I aren't in a healthy relationship and made some transphobic remarks about my partner, saying that he will never see him as a man and will always see him as a woman. That's cringe. And that it wasn't healthy that we weren't bickering and fighting with each other. Oh, you guys aren't fighting? Are you even a real couple? What the heck, guys? That's so silly. You guys love each other? Cringe. And saying that I would be better off alone instead of with him. After that, I slowly started to distance myself away and focus on my partner again. I tried to see this from his view, thinking he was just looking out, and at the time I just shrugged it off again. This would not be the first time he would make comments on mine and Danny's relationship. He was supportive, yes, to the both of us, but behind the scenes would try and get us to split, or shit talk one or the other, trying to put negative thoughts in my mind. I cut contact with him after I had enough in the summer of 2021, when I learned he had hurt one of my best friends. He had come down for New Year's Day 2023, and after not speaking to him for a while, I wanted to hear him out and try and give him another shot. Well, that was a mistake. What the fuck? From almost blowing us up with a firework mortar to more non-consensual tummy grabs and rubs, this was the last straw for me, and we had no contact since. I would notice he started posting body positivity posts, which completely rubbed me the wrong way. Sure, what went through was not as bad as any of the other claims, but I do hope he is held accountable for not only what he did / said to me, but for what he has done to my friends and partner. This guy tried using like the Dead Rising firework cannon on like these people. Holy shit. Victim 18. I met Doppio through a mutual friend, and we were originally fursuit siblings. He seemed alright. My first interaction with him, we talked for a bit at the end of a con. Nothing serious to note, nothing committal about anything. Cut to the next time I see Doppio at a fur meet, and I'm in my fursuit. He comes up to me like we've been best buds for years, and before even really saying hi to me, he just immediately puts his hands on my belly and begins rubbing. I think at some point, he even showed my belly off to his other friend, while I was just standing right there in suit, not sure what to do. All without consent. I was mortified, but I'm too confrontation averse, so I just let it slide and walked off. I didn't really know how to handle the situation. We've barely talked outside of the one interaction, so it was pretty odd and extremely uncomfortable. I thought maybe this was just a weird one-off situation, but every time I encountered him at a con or at meet, it was the same sort of thing. He also made comments about my weight like, "Ooh, you've gained a lot of weight since the last time I saw you," and things like that. I'm pretty self-conscious about being overweight, and he only amplified that to fuel his fetish. He cared more about non-consensually touching my belly than seeing me as a person. Got to the point that I was anxious about running into him at a con or meet because I didn't want to be in that situation again. At some point during a con, he happened to enter a headless lounge as I was de-suiting, taking off my digi-suit and letting myself cool down. He saw me, came over, and gasped when he saw that my digi-suit had pillows for the belly. He then grabbed my face to forcibly turn it to him and said, "You slut," before he walked off, like I had badly offended him. Holy shit. "How dare you not be his, you must be a certain weight. Doppio demands it. It must be a sacrifice." I really couldn't believe it at the time. He was with a friend who didn't seem to say anything about his behavior either. This is my last in-person interaction with Doppio, and this happened around 2021 to 2022. Randomly a few weeks before TFF 2024, Doppio sent me a message on Twitter 2 years after my last interaction with him, apologizing for non-consensually touching me. Oh god, alright, let's look through this. "Hey man, I realized that I touched your belly without consent in the past, and I made you uncomfortable. And the chubby comments, it was wrong of me, and I owe you an apology. I'm truly sorry for my actions and how I made you feel. I'm genuinely trying to change." No, you're not. Who said that? "Turn a new leaf, and I just genuinely want to apologize to you for what I did." See, my problem is as follows. Number one, you knew I was unconsenting at the time, yet you still proceeded to touch me and make uncomfortable comments to me. You sexually objectified me because of my belly and touched me inappropriately anytime you saw me. Number two, I'm not the only person you've done this to, and from what I'm hearing, you've done worse to others without their consent, and you've had the same conversation with them, yet this is still happening. Exactly. That's what we've been waiting for. When you found out my digi-suit had belly padding, you grabbed my face, called me a slut, and walked off angrily like I did something wrong. 4. He's a close friend of mine, And because of you, he can't even let others touch his belly now because he's traumatized by you sexually objectifying him. If you can't learn how to not touch people without consent, you shouldn't go to conventions. Not everyone is going to be brave enough to confront you directly when you're assaulting them. And then they attached a funny screenshot of Doppio trending and then arrest trend. Victim 19. As some of you know, I was friends with Doppio in mid-February. He had confessed to me that he had inappropriately touched 3 people. He made it sound like it happened in 2022 and had not happened since, that he was trying to be a better person but felt outcasted locally. When Doppio was ousted from one of the local fur meets, I found out that there was 5 victims. For those who don't know me, I dislike liars a lot. I don't care. I'll cut you from my life if you lie to me. This, among a few other things, is the reason I cut off communication with him. I feel like I am one of the lucky ones he never did anything to me. However, there are a few microaggressions he committed here and there around me. The 2 big instances are when I mentioned I was indigenous and told him the tribe I descended from, Maya. He made fun of, saying the Numa Numa song lyrics, which is fine, I guess, I get it. I chalked it up to him being insensitive and dumb Doppio. The other instance was when we were at a mutual friend's birthday party. Doppio showed up late and sat next to me. When he got to the party, he lifted up my shirt sleeve and bit the shit out of my left arm. I remember calling him a motherfucker, but I didn't think much of it. I've bit my close friends, but never intentionally hard at the time. At that time, I didn't think of us being particularly close enough to bite each other, but I just ignored the situation and moved on. Among random things, he would also lecture me quite frequently about my social life. For those not in the know, I am very much a hermit and rarely get out. I am content with being at home by myself. He would also lecture me about not expanding my horizons and only hanging out with friends at cons, that I won't make any new friends if I don't get out. Finally, he would go around telling people at local meets that he was my boyfriend, which is something he does a lot to people. As you know, the number of victims is over 20. Oh, it's even more now. My heart breaks for all of you. No one deserves to be assaulted. I stand with the victims of Doppio. I hope that all of you find some sense of peace and that some form of justice happens. Sorry for the long thread. Thank you, Gray. Victim 20. At Megaplex 2023, I had not known Doppio prior to this interaction, but I saw him for a brief period. In this brief interaction, we shared hugs and took pictures, but before we went on, he grabbed my stomach without asking, which made me uncomfortable, and made the comment, "We need to make the belly bigger." That comment made me wildly uncomfortable, and it was crossing a line. Victim 21. I won't say my name, but I wanted to say last year at TFF, he was invited to my room. He wanted cuddles, and that was okay, yet he came and saw a bunch of people here and asked me to tell them to leave. And, well, I did because I had a suit crush on him. Little did I know what he had planned instead. I'm a usual top, but he started getting handsy during the cuddles and asked if we could fuck. I didn't even respond because I wasn't looking for that. Yet he started to undress me and took his way with me, and I was forced to sit alongside him once more during FWA and forced to make content with him by friends. I'm happy he's finally getting the shit he deserves. Victim 22. Doppio and I met through TikTok when I was just beginning to post videos at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. And chatter moved from TikTok messages to Telegram, and eventually we met IRL and nothing happened. He seemed okay, and then the pandemic started. In early September of 2020, he came up from Texas with the intent to film some TikToks together. There was zero sexual pretext, zero intent of something sexual, just filming and hanging out. I had just started getting into VR at the time, and while waiting, I hopped on VR. He made it to the house. I didn't see that he'd arrive immediately, and my boyfriend let him in. While in VR, he pulled my pants down and... Oh, I'm really uncomfortable now. There was no asking if it'd be okay, no announcing himself, nothing. Just action without thought or communication. I looked down, shocked and stunned, honestly at a loss for words at what was occurring, especially due to me being very open about having PTSD from previous SA and R-word trauma from my preteen years. He absolutely knew about this at the time. It's something I'm open about. I personally find being able to talk about my past trauma to be one method of dealing with it, and being able to live with it and thrive. However, for somebody to do what he had done, essentially committing the same act that I already had PTSD from, I was speechless. He continued for a few seconds, it couldn't have been in total more than 5 to 7 seconds, and then got up like nothing had happened and washed his mouth. At least he's clean. Oh. I didn't bring it up at all at the time, and I thought I was the only one that happened to. The rest of his visit was uneventful, and there have been passing comments about when I've mentioned wanting to lose weight and lose my belly to try to be healthier, saying I should keep my belly, and other comments similar to what others have already stated. Again, I apologize for not coming out about this sooner or speaking up to him, especially as a survivor of previous trauma and events of similarity. I know how important it is to speak up. Oh, I'm getting more and more uncomfortable as I go farther into this document. Victim 23. I think it was last year, 2023. I was in the fursuit lounge cooling off with some other friends when Doppio came in. I had met him for the first time IRL the other day, so we were excited to see each other again. Hugged and all that. Then he asked me, "Can I do something violent to you?" Whoa. Whoa, this is, whoa. To which my obvious response was, "Will it hurt?" I think he shrugged, so I told him, okay, as long as it won't hurt a lot. At which point, he lifted me up by my armpits and threw me to the ground hard. What the fuck? It was a good thing I was in full suit and had some padding around my head, because thinking about it, I honestly probably could have got a concussion. There was a bruise on the back of my head, and my neck and back were sore for a week. He was very apologetic afterwards, like he knew he was too forceful. But I'd seen him do this to other people in videos before, so I can't imagine he didn't know what he was doing. Oh, I'm just getting more and more uncomfortable. Victim 24. I've personally known of Doppio since 2019 when I first moved to the DFW area and began to attend local fur meets and conventions. He would drive all the way from San Angelo, about a 4-hour drive, just to attend the meets. I thought he was very devoted to do that, and I also thought he was a nice, goofy, fun guy. This thought all changed as time moved on. I am lucky that I didn't get to see him much. Either our meet schedules didn't correlate often, or I just didn't see him at most meets I attended. However, when I did see him at meets, I observed a strange thing. He would talk to a lot of the big belly furs in attendance, and would be petting their bellies. In the furry fandom, it isn't unusual to pet someone's belly. With consent. That is the key point. Consent is still cool. Remember, kids, consent is key. Don't go out here sexually assaulting people. Key word there, consent. I thought he had their consent, but in some cases he didn't. So yeah, I thought it was strange that he pet so many bellies. My attitude started changing even more so towards him when he was in a physical contact with me. I'm not a big belly fur, but the thing he liked about me was my ears. When we hugged, he would whisper just plain creepy things in my ears. How cute I was, how short I was, how much he wanted to do stuff with me. This led to me approaching him less and less throughout the years. I attended Freya's and Asan's room party at Texas Furry Siesta 2023. It was supposed to be a fun, chill party to just chill out, drink, eat some snacks, and enjoy the company of friends. When I entered the room, I saw Doppio, and I was a bit let down to see him there. He was lying on the bed with some people. I decided to go to the table to get some cookies to eat. As I was putting the cookies on my plate, I felt something warm and squishy under my left ear and began moving around. It was Doppio's tongue. Oh! As you can imagine, I was very surprised and caught off guard. I walked to the other side of the room to eat my cookie. At this point in time, one of my other convention roomies, who was also at the party, expressed to me he wasn't feeling well due to drinking too much, and we left the party to get him back to the room. From that moment on, I actively began avoiding Doppio. I again rarely saw him at the meets, if I even did since the incident. I now understand that he was beginning to be banned from local DFW meets, so that may have been it. The last time I saw him was at Texas Furry Fiesta 2024 last month, and I made sure to walk as far and as quickly around him as possible in the crowded Sky Bridge. I know I should have said something or told someone about Doppio, but like most others, I just didn't. I hear he was great at twisting things around and somehow always looked to be innocent, so I guess this is how we got away with it for so long. Not anymore. Victim 25. On June 4th, 2021, Doppio offered to take me to meet a new Texas fur at the time, named Radical Puma. I lived in San Marcos at the time, and Cal lived in Dallas, so this was a pretty long drive. But I was excited to meet Cal, so I went with him. The drive up there was fine, and meeting Cal was wonderful, but the time to leave rolled around. Doppio told me that Cal had told him there was no room, and that we had to leave. I came to realize later that was a lie, and Cal had plenty of room for us to stay that night. This was important as Doppio was very intoxicated, and he was my ride home. So we set out at 11:30, and the driving was very reckless and dangerous. About 30 minutes in the drive, he had to stop to sleep off the alcohol, and we stopped at a sketchy gas station in the middle of nowhere. I texted Toon to keep me company. I was feeling scared. He slept for about an hour and a half. Then we set out again. It was a bit smoother but still unsteady. We made it back to my place at 5 a.m. and he slept on my couch. TLDR, Doppio lied about what Cal had told him, being able to spend the night, drove me home while intoxicated, and had me wait at a gas station while he slept off the alcohol. And this is Radical Puma backing up their statement. I am no stranger to hosting parties, and my birthday party on June 5th, 2021 at my apartment in Dallas was no exception. I often allow alcohol at my parties and specifically make space for people to sleep if they are unable to drive. I insist anyone without a ride to stay and sleep, even if only a couple hours, and I refuse to let someone else drive later that night until his BF and roommate came and got him in his car. And with Doppio it was no different. That day I was elated to finally meet Nalu in person, as we had lots in common. Doppio offered to drive Nalu and the party went off well, until oddly around 11:30 p.m. Doppio started insisting he needed to leave. I knew he had a few drinks, at least at the start of the party, but as the party was underway and about a dozen people in attendance, It was impossible for me to track exactly how much and when. Doppio approached me around 11:30 and said he and Nalu were leaving. Much to my surprise, and contrary to what we discussed earlier that day, I protested sharply. I informed him I had space for him to sleep and would absolutely make any accommodations necessary for Nalu, including getting a hotel if they felt uncomfortable crashing with a bunch of people they did not know. He told me lie after lie. He stated outright he had not been drinking outside of one drink and at the start of the party. He insisted he was perfectly fine to drive despite I later learned he had barely slept the day before and had been on the road almost 8 hours already before my party and was looking at 4 more to return Nalu to her home. When those protests did not work, he started telling me Nalu insisted on not saying. It was Nalu who insisted on going home. I have since talked to Nalu, and this was an absolute lie. However, I regrettably at the time did not confirm with Nalu, and thus the lies were believed as truth. So against my advice, against my protest, Doppio left, drunk, to drive Nalu home. 27. I'm Ember, one of Doppio's victims. My first encounter with him was at Megaplex 2022, where he grabbed my head and shoved it into his belly in the dealer's den. This was right behind my table, and I was shocked when it initially happened. I didn't think much of it afterwards, but I still kept in touch because he was nice outside of that incident. Fast forward to TFF 2023, he allowed me to spend a night in his room on Wednesday night at the con. But when I showed up, he wasn't even at the hotel yet for me to put my stuff away, so I had to chill in the lobby for 4 hours with nothing to do. It kinda left a bad taste in my mouth, but I ignored it because he was nice at the con for me during the weekend. Oh boy. Moving to Megaplex 2023 was where it took place. I had invited him to my hotel room on Sunday, September 17th, 2023. For him to join myself and 2 others in my room for some dinner, I gave him a spare chicken sandwich I had bought for him and he accepted it. Afterwards, I asked if we could cuddle before he left the con for the weekend since he was going home that Sunday. So he joined us for some cuddles. Out of nowhere, he suddenly pulls my pants down and grabs my dick, to which both my friend and my roommate yelled at him to stop. I didn't know why he did that, but I immediately asked him to leave my room after that. I cried in my roommate's arms after that incident happened, and I kind of fell apart. After the incident took place, I filed a police report with the Orange County Police Department, just so it was documented with both the con and the police. He reached out to apologize to me after the incident, to which I did accept, but I was completely unaware of the entire track record he had with assaults and other inappropriate behaviors he had exhibited on other people before my own personal incident with him. He attempted to fix his behavior, but after what other victims have shared recently, it is clear he does not actually care about what he has done. He attempted to manipulate me and claim he was asexual or that we had chemistry, hence justifying his actions for why he assaulted me. This incident had put me in a bad mental space to the point I had withdrawn from my college studies for the 2023 to 2024 academic year. I had health issues that were also complicating it before this happened, but this was the nail in the coffin. I went to seek therapy with a psychologist, as well as working on my own personal health improvement while I'm out of college for the year. I hope this statement not only sheds light on what kind of person Doppio is and how he had personally impacted me, but also gives others the opportunity to see him for who he really is. Alright, 28. I'm Marcy, or Marcy Paws. As with many people he has hurt, I am in the same local DFW community as Doppio. I was mutuals with him at the time of the incident, and I had praised him as a fellow body positive / plus size creator. I looked up to him in a way, and I had told him so. I was at a friend's room party at TFS 2023 when Doppio came up to me while my fiance was sitting next to me and shoved his face on my body. He made this weird moaning type noise after giggling. His face was so buried in my belly and the top of his head on my boobs that my fiance had to gently shove him off me. After he saw my face, he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I bet you're going to tell everyone I sexually harassed you." What the fuck? I was stunned, and I felt incredibly betrayed. No one had ever touched me like that. He made me feel disgusting, and like nothing more than an object for my weight. I cried harder than I've ever cried in a long time when I got back to my hotel room. He apologized and insisted to me later via telegram that it wasn't sexual and that the comment was just a bad joke. I was admittedly way too nice to him at the time and believed him, because I still looked up to him, and I'm normally so afraid of confrontation that I just end up fawning to whoever hurt me. I talked to him with the impression that this was just a one-time drunk mistake, but after learning that there are at least 10 other people with similar experiences before and after my incidents, I know that's not true. He absolutely knew what he was doing, he just didn't care until he saw how upset I looked. I stopped going to local fur meets altogether after that, because seeing him just upset me way too much. I felt icky whenever I saw him in person. I felt so incredibly alone for a long time because of this. I may have believed all that if he hadn't continued touching people without their consent and making gross sexual comments after what he did to me. I'm far from being the first, and I definitely wasn't the last. I'm sick and tired of him deflecting, playing the victim, making excuses for himself, and pretending that he cares and is a good guy. He keeps saying he's improving, that he's getting help, but he keeps repeating the same predatory behaviors, and then feeling sorry for himself. I hate that he paints himself as much as a positive figure and then turns around and takes advantage of other people that befriend and look up to him. He's really good at manipulating people and acting innocent, and that's why he's gotten away with this for so long. I haven't spoken out until now because I've been so afraid of backlash from his supporters. But now that I've found out so many people with similar experiences, I feel safer to be open about it since I'm no longer speaking alone. What he did to me and so many others makes me sick, and I honestly just don't want anyone else to go through what we've gone through because of him. I was finally starting to feel really confident in my body before the incident with him, but after that I just felt disgusted in my belly because of how he violated me because of it, and based on the people we know he has hurt. He has a pattern of fetishizing/sexualizing plus-size people who didn't consent to that kind of treatment. As afraid as I've been to speak out because of potential backlash from his fan base, I don't care at this point. People can say whatever they want about me, but I know my truth, and I will not shut up and be polite about it. I know he wants me to. I just don't want to see him keep hurting people more than anything. I really hope for the sake of others that the community stands behind us and doesn't let him keep repeating this behavior. 29. I met Doppio about a year and a half ago through a friend that we had in common. Thankfully I never met him in person, but did have several interactions with him through Telegram and Discord. A mutual friend, let's call him A, asked me if I wanted to go in a group chat with him. I believe he was planning to go to a con that we were going to or something like that. Well, I agreed, and about an hour later the group chat was made. Upon first impression I thought Doppio was a little off-putting, but I trusted this mutual friend so I stuck it out. For a little bit things were okay, and I even wondered if I was overreacting. For a little bit things were okay, and I even wondered if I was overreacting, but then he started messaging me out of the group. Things started normal enough, a little flirty for my liking as I was in a relationship, but what I would still call normal for how folks in the fandom talk. Then I posted a photo of myself on my Twitter and it got weird. For context, I'm a trans man and I'm fat. It wasn't even 20 minutes of me posting that new photo that he started messaging me. It started about my belly. I was rather uncomfortable because my weight is something I struggled a long time to come to terms with. I expressed to him that I didn't like the conversation, but that didn't stop him. Things telling me if he ever saw me at a con, he was going to touch my belly, sit on me, and things of that nature. Again, I expressed that I wasn't comfortable and even told him I had struggled with it. When he didn't stop the conversation, I just stopped replying and ignored him. Thankfully, because it was a solely online interaction, I got away with this for about a week. I wasn't too long on testosterone when we met. I believe it was between my 3-month mark to my first year. So it was pretty obvious I was transitioning when I spoke. I briefly joined one of my TikTok lives when I was ignoring him. I saw his name flash by pretty quickly, but I really didn't think much of it. I assumed he had gotten the message and it wasn't going to bother me again. I was wrong. He messaged me on Telegram shortly after the live stream ended and started about my transition. It started with just general questions about my transition, and then it got a lot more aggressive. Doppio shortly stopped using the pronouns that he had known me by at this point, intentionally misgendering me, which for obvious reasons was a no-go for me. I blocked him on Telegram and unfollowed him across other socials. The damage is still there and still has me scared to make friends within this fandom. Number 30. It was a super quick interaction, basically as I said. I asked for a picture, he said he wanted to do a video. I agreed. So his video was to pick me up and slam me on the hard hotel convention floor. I was only protected by carpet. We were not in a play area with any pads. He then seemingly tried to make it a joke by stomping me as I tried to wave and push him away. His friend held my arms down and he sexually assaulted me in front of everyone. I did not ask or consent to belly rubs. That is a no zone for me unless consent is given. As he did this to me, he told me, "You like this." I never said I liked it or I wanted it or suggested we do something of that nature at all. Oh, he asked what I wanted to do for the video. My mistake was not having an idea already. I responded, "I don't know anything." Then that was when he suddenly picked me up on my waist and threw me on the ground. 31. I first met Doppio in person at MFF 2022 at a room party. He was friends with a lot of my friends, so I took him as a good guy. I don't remember how we started a conversation, but we realized we knew each other online. For some insane reason, this guy told me, "You're such a cutie," then proceeded to kiss me on the head. Keep in mind, we had been interacting for maybe 2 minutes. I was inebriated in one way or another, so I just kind of stood there and laughed it off. Even though inside I knew I wasn't comfortable with it, I tried to forget it as quickly as possible, which worked to an extent. My brain kind of said nope and repressed it, so I barely thought about it until all this came up. And because I pretend it didn't happen, Doppio and I ended up becoming friends. So because it seemed like everyone loved him, I never wanted to say anything about this, especially since it didn't seem like too big of a deal, even if it made me really uncomfortable. I never brought it up to him either when we became friends. It's not super horrible, especially in comparison to what he's done to other people, but I thought it'd be worth sharing anyways, just to show how weird he can be with people the second he meets them. 32. I was one of the many people who attended Krypton's housewarming party back in August 2022. The party was going well, and after a couple hours, I started to get overstimulated, which is normal for me. I told Krypton and we went back to his bedroom and relax. We went back to his bedroom to relax and decompress for a bit. Some time passed by, and I remember Doppio arriving at the party and entering the bedroom. I saw this as a nice surprise, as I've always considered him a good friend of mine, almost ever since I joined the fandom. I met him when I attended my first Plano Fur Meet, which was back in July 2019, and we had no conflicts at all. However, during that night at the party, I remember Doppio coming in and physically overcoming Krypton and me. I will not talk about what happened to Krypton, as that is his own story to tell. What he did to him was apparently not enough to satisfy him. So he also made his mark on me, literally. Doppio put his mouth on my stomach multiple times in multiple places, and each time he did, he forcibly sucked my skin. Some spots on my stomach were severely affected enough to be bruised. None of this was consensual. Doppio never asked for consent, he just did it. After he was done with me, he left the room, and I could not have been more confused and stunned by what just happened to me in Krypton. Thankfully, the rest of the party for me went okay, and the next day, Doppio told me he was sorry for the way he behaved. I accepted his apology, and he never did anything like that to me again. However, fast forward to the most recent time I saw him as of writing this, which was April 8th. I hung out with him that night in a hot tub with a few other friends. He never did anything to me physically, but I remember him telling me that I was starting to get a little bit of a belly, which made me feel a bit insecure because I personally like my relatively flat stomach. Back in high school, I had to alter my diet due to a temporary gluten and corn intolerance. And during the pandemic, I stopped eating as much as I was awake for most nights and asleep during the day. As a result, I lost a total of about 25 to 30 pounds and I felt a lot better, but I had no idea if he was trying to gaslight me into thinking I had more of a belly nowadays. But I weighed myself a few days after when it came back into my mind and the scales showed my normal weight. I knew he was in a bellies and he talked about a lot of body positivity in public spaces online, but to learn that he used those platforms as a means to violate numerous other people behind closed doors for his own personal gain, makes me really sad. All of you have my utmost support, and you can talk to me anytime. What he did to you does not define you. Doppio, if you ever read this, I hope you get help. Other than our incident a couple of years ago, I haven't really felt unsafe from you, but putting this testimony out here is my way to fully resolve the trauma that came from it. This is a time for you to take a step back from the fandom and figure out how to do better. I'm extremely disappointed in you. 33. Hi, I have details about Doppio that I want to share. So there's a video from MFF 2023 that I think is still on Twitter of him pantsing me in the Hyatt lobby. It was very late at night. I consented to this video being taken and want to make that clear, but the rest of our interactions are where I had an issue with him. When he initially came up to me in the lobby, he spanked me as his greeting, and I think it goes without saying that I would have liked permission first before he did that. He also continuously made me uncomfortable and asked me to touch his belly several times despite me not wanting to, and that being something I'm not into at all. 34. I dated Doppio back from October 2019 to December 2020. We mutually broke up under the impression that we were on a break due to a long-distance relationship at a standstill due to COVID-19. In fact, the main escalation of the breakup happened due to his frustration. I would not let him visit me, and I would not visit him. At the time, the world knew little about the virus, and Tanner lived with his grandparents at the time. I wasn't interested in inadvertently giving his family a deadly virus. During our relationship, we had no sexual contact. In the fresh year of 2021, I returned to a highly demanding job where I spent 50 to 60 hours weeks. Every night after work, we would engage in phone calls averaging 1 to 2 hours. The content of the calls was usually consoling Doppio over loneliness and mental struggles. Constantly, I would instruct him to engage in therapy to resolve his block. On June 23, 2021, my work environment was the victim of a shooting resulting in the death of one person. My job description was in direct connection with the security of the property, making this a heavy day to say the least. Furthermore, I had a family member working as an employee at the same property stationed near the scene of the shooting. This is a day that would live with me for the rest of my life. Naturally, I desperately needed someone to spill it to emotionally. Per usual, I called Doppio the moment I was relieved from my job for the day. There was no answer for the first 2 call attempts, but in my adrenaline spiked state, I was in no mood to accept being ignored. On the 3rd call attempt, Doppio answered and I began to explain my life-altering day. However, I was cut off by him saying, "Cooper, I don't have time for this right now. Call me tomorrow when you don't work." Needless to say, I was appalled by the sheer lack of care. His dismissive attitude sent me into a panic attack. I was alone with the one person I considered my closest abandoning me senselessly. It took me the entire first half of July to come around to forgive Doppio. Reason being also the fact that he is much more concerned about organizing future conventions than my well-being. An apology was never issued. I merely stepped out on my own strength to regain what was left of our friendship. Going into August 2021, Doppio and I had planned on rooming together for Stratosphere, TFS, and ACFI. For Stratosphere, I helped him host a TikTok panel. My responsibility was to plan interactive events and design visuals in a PowerPoint. Throughout Saturday at the con, I had spent the entire day with him, shooting, dealer's den shopping, hosting our panel, and eating out with a friend group. Returning to the hotel, Doppio informed us that he had established an open invite party in our room. While this was done without any of the roommates' consent, we played it off and prepared the room for the night. This would be the largest party at Stratosphere Saturday night. As the party started, Doppio pulled me aside in the room. He said that he felt like I had been avoiding him the entire day. This is a clear instance of psychological abuse and gaslighting. As previously said, I had spent the entire day with him, ranging through several hours. Even in specific personal one-on-one time, such as shooting and our hosted panel, I did my best to reassure him for the time being and convince him to go back into the party. trying to disguise my shock as to what he just said to me. Later in the party, an individual got into a verbal altercation with one of our attendees trying to enter the party. One of my roommates successfully kicked him out, and Doppio clearly witnessed this. Our partygoer was clearly distraught and explained that understanding the severity of their mental state, I led them into the stairwell to let them get some space and collect themselves. This lasted about 30 minutes. Entering back into the room, my roommate informed me that Doppio was missing. Worried, immediately texted Doppio while still keeping an eye on the emotionally compromised attendee. Texted him where he was and concerned for his safety. As the party died down, I took the attendee down the hall in search of a party to save his night. We came across the room that the previously vulgar R-word was staying in. The attendee relapsed into a panic. I only got a glimpse into the room, filled with rampant sex, drugs, and alcohol. Landing in a lax room party, I checked my phone to be in absolute disbelief. I see that my texts of concern have been deleted by Doppio. I start to panic, assuming that he may harm himself in sadness. Assuming that his earlier talk about being lonely is driving his mental state. Eventually I made it back to my room at 3 in the morning. At this point, Doppio had been missing for over 4 hours. Pondering, I make a potential connection. I tell my roommate that I know where he is, but I don't feel safe. The two of us make our way to the party that the R-word was hosting. Without the attendee I was consoling. We are let in with ease. What we find is beyond what my anger can comprehend. My roommate and I find Doppio on the bed, in nothing but a jockstrap, getting pleasured by several people surrounding him. Beyond pissed, my roommate and I return to the room. Within 5 minutes, Doppio returns to our room, flushed with apologies. After the talk we had and deleting my text of concerns, I was apologetic. Doppio made the argument that no one cared about him, especially me. I made the strong counterpoint that I had spent the entire summer calling him, being there for him, emotionally supporting him, planning multiple conventions with him, and above all, being the first person called in my time of need, and he has the audacity to say that I don't care about him. When he turned me away, I was stronger and supported him in return. This is the height of the gaslighting, manipulation, and psychological abuse. Following transfer, I called each one of my close friends, apologizing to everyone that I never had the opportunity to spend time with them, and that I had wasted my time with Doppio. The last remark I made to Doppio was a final instruction to seek therapy. Going forward, I made a vow to never acknowledge his existence again. Some friends made the suggestion that I should apologize and stop giving a harsh, cold shoulder. I knew that Doppio had curated a story to cover his ass. He deleted our entire message logs and blocked me on all platforms. I later discovered that I was caught in several double standards led by Doppio. For example, Doppio expressed anger that I had been sexting friends in an open relationship. This, of course, was after our breakup. Once I stopped, Doppio visited said couple and slept with them both. Oh, God. Over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, I saw Doppio get put on a pedestal on the themes of body positivity, trans rights, and mental health representation, which we've established this guy cares about none of those 3. I knew that these roles he's claimed in the furry fandom were false facades in order to attract attention and a follower base. The only thing that Doppio cares about, and ever has cared about, is the number of followers. He will do whatever it takes to manipulate and create narratives in his favor, to get as much attention as possible. My heart is broken for the victims that I had no idea existed. Doppio is well versed in deleting messages, dividing friends and groups to control the flow of information and manipulation. The reason no one knew until now is because he kept those people isolated and feeling alone. It is now that we all know that this is not only a consistent problem, but a large spanning problem affecting over 30 people, including minors. Please do your part in reading all the testimonies and visiting all the hyperlinks. Either information today and in the future will prevent this individual from harming anyone else ever again. Believe the stories that Doppio has gaslit those into disbelief because they have been ignored for far too long. I'm going to link the document in the description if you want to check out every single hyperlink here. I encourage it. That's not where the story ends. See, the main person spreading around the doc is Athy, and they tweeted, "He is actively trying to suppress our voices, removing the docs and videos. That's not the behavior of someone who is sorry." By the way, we are at around 45 testimonials. That's right, in between the doc being posted, 11 more people came out. So they were at 34 in that Google Doc. They're now at 45. And yes, this guy has been trying to suppress this doc super fucking hard. And that's why I'm making this video. Because he can't remove this. But, you know, with all this shit against him, with a fucking 45-page doc of some of the most disgusting shit I've ever read, how does he respond? You know, with a fucking shitty notes at statement. "Sorry will never be enough to those I've affected. I cannot beg for your forgiveness. I will admit my mistakes and seek the help I need." Dude, you've been saying that this whole time. You're just lying. You're lying to us. Why are you lying? So I finally see what everyone has to say, and the realization of how much I've hurt others with what I've said and done, and how it affected others. Dude, I'm sorry, but there's not, like, this isn't an oopsie daisy moment. You're just done. Get out of here. You fucking freak. "I feel tremendous guilt for not realizing what I've done to the people I've affected in my life. The weight of everything I did and how it affected people. How my actions and words saddened others and ruined people's self-esteem and the trust I betrayed by my actions alone. I truly am a monster for what I have done, and sorry will never be enough to these victims. Seeing their feelings hurt and violated, I understand why they are beyond upset at me. Oh, you understand? Really? That's crazy. Guys, I'm starting to think, guys, he said he's a monster. I'm pretty, you know what? That's making some sense to me. By the way, I just want to point out this ratio, 159 likes, 165,000 views. Yikes. I am owning my terrible actions and my behavior and the pain I've caused others. I objectified people's bodies. I made horrible trans comments. I caused pain to people, passing it off as jokes or for videos. I touched people without consent, making them feel uncomfortable and devalued. I made comments on others' weight, body, even though their body is their body and I have no right to comment on it. For the people I've affected and hurt, and the people I have lost their trust, I am truly sorry for my soul. What I did to you is unforgivable, and you never deserve to be treated that way and have your feelings ignored. I'm truly sorry I never even acknowledged that I hurt you or I treated you terribly. I know you will not believe me, and I do not blame you. You have no reason to believe anything I have to offer you. You are still owed an apology regardless. I have lost every right to be here in the fandom, and for that I will be leaving and seeking the help I desperately need. Believe me or not, but I need this for me. I need to get the help I've been ignoring. There are issues I ignored in my past sessions and did not truly work on. I'm sorry. I want to really highlight this comment by Koshi Desart that just says no. I feel like that's a pretty fair statement. Just no. Just a quick fuck off. Yeah, this guy's a monster. There's really no other word. This guy is literally like he's terrible. He's a demon. Anyway, that's I'm probably done for now. I don't even know. Go show support for the victims, guys. This is fucking awful. I do think that this was brought to the police's attention, and I do think they're investigating this guy. That's what we need. This guy, there's no seeking better help. You need to go to jail. That's it. You just go to jail. There's no more I fucked up, I'm sorry. You go to jail. Anyway, that's probably where I'm gonna end the video. I don't know. Later.